Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 4 of the Sobriety Matters podcast. I have been on a bit of a hiatus since summer started. It kind of snuck up on me quick. I was out of the gate really good with my first 3 episodes, and then I got pretty busy. So this spring and beginning of summer, I took on the duty of t-ball coach for my son's boys and girls club team, and that was awesome. The kids had a lot of fun, and I do have to say that had I not been sober, it's definitely not a responsibility that I probably would have taken on in the past, and so that was an awesome experience, and I look forward to doing some more coaching. In the last couple of weeks, my wife and I have purchased an RV, and so we have now jumped into the RV life and camping life. I grew up camping and actually did not realize how much I missed it until we started back into it this last couple of weeks. We have had 2 weekends in a row with a 5-year-old and an 18-month-old, and they have been flawless trips, short of one small rain delay. And so we're feeling pretty positive about that. I do not expect every single trip to go flawlessly, but we will take it as our introduction to it, and the kids are having a good time. So as we prepare for the end of July here, going into my son goes back to school August 4th already, which is kind of crazy. I will be trying to bring these episodes back on a regular basis as hopefully life slows down a little bit. But it's been a great summer, and I hope everyone out there has had a great summer as well. So on to episode 4 here. This episode I had Krystina join me. Krystina is a mother, a wife, a student, and also a bartender in sobriety, which is always fun and interesting to have those conversations. Krystina and I met, it would have been late 2020, going into January, when she started a Facebook group. And actually, I got involved with that along with Andrew, who was my last guest on the podcast. And when the three of us have been working together on that. But Krystina has a very interesting story with how she got into her sobriety, and also how she has used social media as one of her main tools for her sobriety. And what's really fun about this episode is that we recorded it, and I am putting it together and getting it out in less than 12 hours, because when you are hearing this for the first time, if you hear it the day that the podcast goes up, it will be Krystina's 365th day of sobriety. So she's celebrating 1 year, and I get to celebrate the publishing of my 4th episode of the podcast. So we get into some details around, how she took her sobriety to her family, her experience with social media, and growing a very, very good following very quickly, and also her experience with AA, and where she's at with AA and how that has gone. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode, and let's have a chat with Krystina here. Hello, Krystina, and welcome to the Sobriety Matters podcast. Thank you for taking some time to sit down with me. This is a special episode. This is the first time that I've done this, so we're recording this just a few hours before your 1 year anniversary, and this will be going live tomorrow morning. And so I'm super excited. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. It's my first podcast.
Yeah, well, I've had a few people that it's been the first, and a few have been my first, because this is only episode 4. So again, thanks for joining us. So let's jump in here a little bit. You know, let's talk about who you are, just in general. A little bit about yourself, family, maybe some things like that.
Okay. Um, my name's Krystina. I am 32 years old. Um, I live in Massachusetts. I have two children. They're pretty young, so 6 and 3 years old. Um, I have my husband, Rob, and I bartend, kind of strange. But for now, it's where I'm at. And because I'm sober, I'm going back to school. And I think that's the gist of kind of who I am right now.
No, I love that bartending piece. That's why we do these intros like that. One of the other gals that I had on, Amanda, lives in wine country, and so you get on these sobriety podcasts and you start to realize that yep, these people are normal humans, and there's normal everyday things that happen that you wouldn't think would happen in sobriety, but the life has to go on, and it is what it is. So just a little background for everybody of how I found Krystina and invited her to the show. I've been following Krystina on social media. Well, it'd be for about a year now. She dove right into Instagram with finding myself sober, and really has documented her entire journey through this first year. So make sure you take a look there. And we've actually started some other things together with Andrew, who's been on the show as well, and so we'll dive into that. But so right now, let's get into your history with drinking, Krystina, and talk about, at what age did you start drinking? How did that progress? Did you think you had a problem years ago? Just a general, kind of your story. Let's dive into that.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I played sports. I had a good group of friends. We'd party maybe once a weekend. I never really drank until I was like 16 or 17. Like I was the captain of the soccer team. And, I was a good role model. My dad is a state trooper, so I was terrified of getting in trouble. Um, so, drinking wasn't a big part of my life when I was in high school. It wasn't until I went to college and I had that first taste of freedom of living on my own, and there were no rules, and basically it was a free-for-all. So that's when I really started drinking, and we would drink on Friday night and Saturday night, and then it would turn into Thirsty Thursday, and then it would turn into Wasted Wednesday. And before I knew it, we were drinking all the time. um, After that year in college, I knew I had to come back home because I knew that I wouldn't succeed, and it'd be basically a waste of money. I would just be getting by. So I came back home, and my group of friends that I had were all in school. In a way, I started hanging out with other people and making other friends around town, and we would go out and we would party. And I went to the community college. And so until I was 21, it was a lot of partying at people's houses, weekends in the woods, that kind of thing. And I didn't think I had a problem until I was about 21. I mean, it was that early. And it wasn't like I had to wake up and drink that I knew I had a problem. It was a mental problem. Like I knew I couldn't stop once I started. I knew I was the type of person that I would go to bed wasted no matter what. 2 glasses of wine didn't happen. 2 drinks didn't happen. So that type of knowing I had a problem was there very early. It started being, I got a job working at the local hospital, and I worked like 5 days a week, 8 to 5. I was 22. I worked my way up to the senior representative. But every night I would go home and I would buy a scuba tank of wine. Like we would call them scuba tanks because they were the huge ones, like the huge barefoots. And Rob and I had just started dating, and we would watch Dexter, and we would each drink one of those wines. And that turned into an every single night thing. And then the weekends were just like, let's go all out. It's the weekend. So I knew in the back of my mind that I had a problem with drinking, that taking a day off was difficult. I had to mentally prepare myself. I had to go through each minute of the day to say, I'm not drinking tonight. I'm not drinking after work. I'm not drinking today. After a while, I realized I didn't like that job at the hospital, and I decided I was going to go back to school, and I got a job waitressing. And I got a job waitressing at this restaurant that was fun. Employees could drink. You could drink halfway through your shift. The girls were my age. I made new friends there, and we just had a great time. And that's when you worked at night. So you drank at night, and that's when you started drinking in the afternoon, because if you didn't have work, that's what you did. And you could have a couple of drinks before work because it kind of loosened you up to be social with your tables and whatnot. And that was when I was 24. So I've been in the restaurant business since then. And my drinking definitely got worse then. It got worse around 24. It was a daytime thing now, all the time. I couldn't take a day off. And I knew it was a problem. I knew I Googled stuff, looking up, like, am I an alcoholic? Do people struggle with this? How do I take a break? Are there pills that will help you stop drinking alcohol that can make you sick? And I would Google all that stuff. But then at 25, I was pregnant with my son. And honestly, one of the first thoughts I had when I found out I was pregnant was, thank God I can't drink for 10 months. Like, this is like something physically, I'm pregnant, so I cannot drink. And I was relieved. And I got to the third trimester of my pregnancy, and I started having a glass of red wine once a week because the doctor said you were allowed that. And I mean, why even do that? You don't need that glass of red wine. It was just my brain and my alcoholism being fulfilled for that time. As soon as my son was born, when he was 6 days old, we brought him to a restaurant and we drank. And I felt like I was making up for lost time. So then I knew I had a problem. I just figured most people around me are like this, and that I didn't have to stop. And then after that, it was kind of the same thing for a few years. Drinking, school, work, repeat, be a mom. My son was young, so it was easy. I would drink during his nap time. I was hungover in the morning, but I would, muscle through it. And then I had my daughter, and I said to myself, I'm not going to drink after I have her. Even my mom told me, I think it's a good idea if you don't drink after her. This is kind of like, a prepping, being pregnant and getting ready for it. And then after I had her, I got postpartum depression. I had a hard time dealing with having two children and being one person and trying to help both of them at the same time, and being torn, being pulled both ways. And I had a very hard time with that. So I would drink to try and escape it, to try and cover it up, to try and make it go away. That just only made it worse. But I was spiraling. I didn't know any way else to get out or to cope or to numb. Basically, I was just numbing it all. And then that was the same for a couple of years. Up until this past summer, the pandemic, it got really bad. We drank all the time. We heard that the liquor stores were shutting down, so we literally ran to the liquor store and bought like $500 worth of booze to have in case the liquor store closed. And then, my, how do I say this? Like my judgment was impaired. I couldn't make decisions, like good decisions. I would put my kids in the car after a few drinks. I was selfish. I thought I was fine and would drive with them. I woke up thinking about when I could have my first drink. And I woke up to notes to myself on my phone, like my drunk self begging myself to stop. And it wasn't until I really had one night that was a very bad night of driving home drunk with my kids that woke me up. And I knew that that was the breaking point and I had to stop or else something bad was going to happen.
So there's a lot of typical alcoholic thoughts and going through the motions in that story there. The Googling of, do I have a problem? I think we all do that, trying to find a way to basically make it okay for ourselves. And, how many people are alcoholics? Is it more than I think? Am I normal? Yeah. So it, you mentioned a bad night of driving with your kids, and from other conversations that I've had with you, no no major incident though. They're just more of a personal kind of inner vision of like, this has to stop or I'm going to injure anybody. Any other big fallout that kind of pushed you to that, or was that kind of the rock bottom scenario for you?
For me, that one was big because just turning onto my street, I didn't see a man crossing the street, and he literally had to jump out of the way of my car. So that was a big wake up call, and I started accusing my mother of hiding wine on me. And to me, that was just so like when I came to the next day, it was one of the times where I really felt terrible about something. I felt so terrible about accusing my mom. And I felt like that was a whole new low. That was a whole new level of me drinking, was actually being angry at somebody for taking alcohol away and hiding it from me. And recently I found out that she was, and now I'm grateful for it.
And so, yeah, that is that the things we do find out as we get sober. So you make this decision. It's time for me to get sober, and to kind of talk to me. How did you approach that? Did you have any prior stints of sobriety? How did you take it to your family, significant other? What were those first couple of days, maybe the first couple of weeks? What did those look like for you, and how was it accepted, as you kind of brought that to knowledge for everybody?
So this is a question I've gotten a lot on social media about how did I know and how did I first start? That experience for me made me realize I just didn't have another choice. And that's what I told myself. I didn't have another choice. I had never thought about actually becoming full blown sober before. To me, I always thought of taking a break. I would take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, but sometimes I didn't make it past Monday at 5 o'clock. Um, Taking one day off from drinking was very, very difficult for me to even do. So I knew that it was all or nothing for me and my type of personality and the guilt that I feel so intensely about things. I knew it was all or nothing. I could not say I was going to try because I knew I would fail. I kind of had to just be very harsh with myself and say, it's this way or it's no way. You're going to end up just staying drunk forever, and you're not going to be a good role model for your kids, and you're going to keep writing yourself notes and wishing things away. So I made that decision. It was on a weekend, I think, and I said I'm going to give myself one more week. We were having our floors redone in our house, and we were staying at my mom's house that week, and I knew that I would be there mostly, that I wouldn't be driving, and that it was kind of like a mini like staycation for me. Um, so I gave myself that week, and all of these conversations were in my head. That Sunday night before I quit, I told Rob that, I think that we really need to reevaluate our drinking, and I am going to stop. I need to stop drinking. And we've had these conversations so many times before, but we're the devil on each other's shoulders like one of us would be like, well, let's just have a drink. And we'd be like, okay, we're off of that, break. And he agreed with me. And I started the next day. I knew that was it. He was supportive and he stayed sober for about a month with me. I knew that I had to take it to the next level, that I couldn't just talk to him because we were so up and down with it and we could make each other cave very easily. So I knew I had to take it to the next level and tell my mom and my sister. That Monday morning, I texted them and I said, text them together in a group. And I said, hi, I have a problem. I can't stop drinking and I think I'm an alcoholic. And starting today, I am going to try to become sober. And I would really appreciate it if you guys could help me. And I was crying as I typed that. And they just both responded saying, we love you. Of course, we support you. My mom, I forget exactly what she said, but she said something kind of like towards the fact of like, it's about time, but not harshly. It was very nice. She's very good at doing that. So it made me feel like she knew, but she really appreciated that I came to that decision on my own. And so it was nice knowing that I had their help. The first week was so difficult. It wasn't one day at a time. It was 1 hour at a time. Especially working in a bar. That week I bartended 5 days. So I was one of the first ones to pour myself a shift drink at the end of the night. The place that I work at now is more high end and you can't drink during work. It's that's a huge reason why I switched jobs. I didn't mention that before, but I switched to a different restaurant because they had more rules. The boss was more on top of you. You can't drink during work. It's much more structured. And I thought, well, working at a place like that will really tame me and calm me down. But, at 10 o'clock when we got out of work, I would just drink more to make up for lost time. And so feeling like I was missing out on that shift drink was difficult the first month, I'd say. But I didn't tell anybody at work. I just kind of said, I'm not drinking. Everybody asked me if I was pregnant and I said no. And the first weekend was very hard, but I worked. And so that kept me occupied. I slept. I was tired. I'm kind of trying to remember it now. You go back and you forget. You get very tired in the beginning. Your body's recovering. So I slept a lot. I went to bed early with my kids. I didn't make plans with my girlfriends. I told a couple of them that I was done. They probably didn't think it was forever. Until now they believe it, but it's important. And it was important for me to just have the people in my corner to tell them and to trust them because I knew I needed their support and I could fall back on them in hard times. And then also, I don't know why I did this, but I had never looked into a sober community on Instagram. I have my own personal account under my own name with family stuff and friends, but I had never thought to look for sobriety accounts or to follow that as inspiration. So this was new to me too. I wasn't kind of dabbling in it. I decided to make an account and I was like, I'm going to make a separate account and I'm going to follow people that are in sobriety. There has to be some people out there and I'm just going to document my journey along the way and kind of like a diary. And I met so many people, especially women and mothers, that was very comforting in the beginning because there were a lot of them as well. So knowing you weren't alone was another big helping point in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's a unique piece of your story. You'd mentioned social media earlier and got into it right there. I mean, from day one, which first off, let me start by saying how commendable it is the way that you approached the fact that you needed to get sober and took it to your family the way that you did. Many of us cannot do that. Yours actually is it's kind of a reverse intervention of what you normally hear. Normally it's it's the family coming to you, but it sounds like you took it to them, and there is not enough that can be said about that. So so kudos to you on that. But let's talk about that social media, dive that you took. So you created the Finding Myself Sober account. You started to follow these different sobriety accounts and different communities that's out there. I myself didn't really know that was there until probably right around the time that you started your account.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would have been probably a year and a half in at that point, and it never really occurred to me to go and look at, search it out on social media. And so it's interesting how you and I met. That's where I met you there, and then I started following you, and then just over time, I really started to see this influx of all of this Instagram and these huge sobriety accounts. And obviously, I think COVID had some of that was in effect, but because nobody could go anywhere, and we all had to go somewhere. But talk about that social media journey a little bit, of how it started, and then how quickly did you grow your following? Because I mean, you are you're an influencer on Instagram and on social media, whether you're going to say you are or
I
not.
was gonna say, I don't think so.
I think you are, because I see the amount of interaction in the community that you and I are in now, and we can talk about that a little bit. But talk about that journey into social media, and just how you approach it, because I think your approach is very unique.
Um, so I don't have like a designed approach. I think it's just kind of how my brain thinks what I'm going to do that day. But in the beginning, um, I posted and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to make a post every day to just kind of talk about how I feel and see what comes up. And as I followed people, I kind of saw what they were talking about and how they feel. And even just reading others' posts makes you start internalizing and makes you start thinking about yourself, not comparing, but just the sober aspect of where they're at that journey and how you feel and can relate to it. And so that reflection was good. And so since I wasn't spending my time drinking, I spent a lot of time in my head. And so I would write down a lot of stuff that I thought I would like to get out on social media. For me, honestly, the hardest part was the pictures for a while. And and then I realized that there's hashtags and you could follow hashtags. I didn't know this. I'm like so kind of new to social media. I'm not great at it. And so I was like, oh, I'll start following these hashtags, and well, maybe I'll start putting hashtags on my pictures to see if for people to relate to. And I really think that that is what grew kind of a following. That's how people found me a lot, was the hashtags. So I continued to do that, and I continued to look for hashtags that related to me and what I was going through. And then all of a sudden I would get messages from people saying like, oh, I really related to that post. And when I started getting messages from women or mothers saying that, it was a huge relief. It was a huge breath of fresh air to chit chat and talk and be able to say that we're not in this alone. It's people together. And so then that's how the engagement started. And I kept posting every day. I shared on my stories. I knew that sharing on my stories was a way to vent, was a way to interact. And it was also a distraction for me in my life, something to keep me sober. I kept doing that. I continued talking to people. I met you, I met Andrew. And this is kind of strange, but as a bartender, like for me, sometimes it's easier to talk to men. I don't know why. It's not a flirtatious thing. It's just as a bartender, you talk to them more. It's a little bit easier. But it was so nice to have the woman come to me. And I honestly think that the roles have switched. Now I really enjoy talking to women and seeing how they feel about sobriety and trying to guide them a little bit because of where I'm at now. Um, so I met people. I met you. I met Andrew. I've met a few other people on Instagram that really stick out to me. I follow only sobriety accounts and only people that are sober, besides maybe a few family members. I like to keep my feed as my therapy. When I scroll, it's things that help me and help my sobriety. Um, it was that was huge for me, and that's probably something I should touch on. Having my news feed, because when I scroll on it in the middle of the night or whenever I'm awake, it's always a quote. It's somebody's post that, you know, their caption is hits home, or it makes you think, or you can relate to it. It's sayings, so stuff like that really helped me as well, following back. And then, you know, you get the strange sugar daddy messages sometimes that you just have to delete and move on. Those haven't happened in a while, thank God. But you can also tell who's sincere about this and who is kind of just there for the kicks or to get a rise out of you. And now I feel like I can really differentiate, you know, where a conversation is going to go, where I want to put my time into, and where I want to just say, you know what, thank you very much, and kind of go on, and we can continue to chat or follow, that type of thing. And that's how I think we'll get to this soon. But we started the Facebook group that led to, I had a lot of people saying they really wanted to, you know, a motivation, a starter. So that's when I thought, oh, dry January might be good. So I was, I don't know what, almost 6 months sober at that point when I shifted a little bit to Facebook.
You, I mean, you took social media and started to build yourself a tool, which is what we all have to find in sobriety. We have to find our tools. We have to find the ones that work for us. And you found it in Instagram. What I am interested in is, while you were using it as that tool for yourself, um, you quickly grew a following that I think also started to lean on you pretty heavily. And as we get sober, you know, the giving back, the taking your message out, the helping those who still suffer can be one of the, you know, the greatest healing pieces that we can have. How did you handle that in such early sobriety, though?
Yeah.
Did you have to step back from it at times? I mean, because I'm guessing from how quickly I've seen some of your numbers go up, that had to be a little intimidating, or even a little overwhelming at times, I would think, huh?
Yes. You saying that definitely does bring back some times of struggle. And I like how you did say that. So Instagram did become my main tool at that time when I didn't know what tools were. And early sobriety is a roller coaster. I mean, you know, there's ups and downs, and there's good days where you feel on top of the world. And then there's days that you just want to dive into the bottom of a bottle because that's the only way you know how to cope. Um, so there is a point, I got to a point where I didn't post every day. I laid back. I only posted when I really felt like it. I would respond to messages, um, but I did feel very down some days, and like I couldn't give myself to others when I could barely give to myself at that point in time. Um, so when that happened, I kind of just, you know, I went with it. I didn't go on social media that day. And I definitely did notice like there was a setback in following and in messages, which is fine because the following's nice, but I wasn't there for it in the beginning. I was there for myself. Helping others is just a perk. And I think it was about maybe 2 months ago now where I was strung out, and I made a post saying I was going to take a break, and I took like a week off, and it helped recharge my batteries. But I also realized that I kind of need this. Like this is, you know, it was my main tool. So it really helped me. And so it didn't take me long to get back. But definitely, and the thing I try to be is very honest. I don't want to sugarcoat stuff. I share when I have bad days. I share when I'm struggling. I haven't posted like any pictures of myself crying, but there's days that are like that. And I think I've shared that in my stories. Um, I try to be honest, and I think that people appreciate that kind of. It's not a magic bubble. Sobriety has ups and downs, and it's tough. And that's how I dealt with that.
Yeah, and you hit on the one key piece of when I made the comment earlier that I thought your approach to all of this is unique, is that you don't sugarcoat anything. And there's a lot of sobriety accounts out there that do a lot of different things. They try to be the expert. They try to be funny. They try to find this niche. And I think the most important thing that you have done is you're just yourself. I mean, it truly is an account that you start following it and you're like, holy shit, like I feel like this girl, like I feel like this person. I completely relate to it. She's just living her every single day life. She's not trying to be any You're not trying to be an influencer. And so when I say you're an influencer and you say, oh no, I'm not, I think you're the type of influencer that we all wish all of them were. Quite honestly, you're the positive influencer that's out there telling the truth, that everybody, it's the things that people want to hear. And so, keep up what you're doing. And so we have kind of talked about the Finding Ourselves Sober group on Facebook. So in January, you decided to start that Facebook group. And I was that around the time you did some of the Instagram lives too, or did that kind of come after? Was that
I
after?
believe the Instagram lives started in February, like
Yeah.
mid-February.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So when you started that group, obviously, we all kind of started to come together. Me, you, Andrew, some of the early folks in that group. And you started it as a dry January. I mean, it was going to be a 30-day. I don't really like calling these things challenges,
I know.
because while they are challenges for some people, for people like you and I, it's a life challenge. You either do it or you don't, because it's not going to be good if you don't do it. So you started that, and just kind of talk about how that's progressed and what it is now, on the Facebook side.
Yeah, so I've talked to so many different people on Instagram that come from different sides of alcohol and alcoholism. Some people want to take a break. Some people want to kind of know what it's like, to challenge, to test the waters. They need baby steps to jump into it. And so I thought, and then that, I know like lifers, like, me, you, Andrew, people that really need to stay sober or else everything's going to fall apart. We don't have a choice. And all these different, aspects and groups, but with the same common um, overall want and goal. I thought, well, January 1st, everybody wants to try something new. They want to be their healthiest. So I'll start it with a month. And so all of these people can give it a shot. They can get a glimpse of what it's like, of reading some sober literature, because we did a book that month, and just little pieces of things that could help them really make this decision if they wanted to. I did some lives that month to kind of chit chat more personally and let people see what I was doing. And some of those people are still in that group that maybe didn't commit, but they like, being along for the ride and watching what's going on. So then I had more people on Instagram reach out about it. And I said, well, let's keep this thing going. Let's do a dry February. And some people, took on their 30 days longer. And some people went back to drinking and really appreciated that break and what they learned. And I still hear from some of those people trying to jump back. And so then more people came in February, and then March, more people came, but that's when I think I had talked to you and Andrew about making this thing more. I knew I didn't want it to be a month to month thing. I wanted it to become a sobriety group, a group for people that are sober to come to with their problems, that's private and safe and secure, where they could get advice. And that was my ultimate goal for it. So I guess I think we did March, and then April, I switched gears, and I don't know why, but I was just like, well, finding ourselves sober, because we're a community. So I just thought of that, and I thought that would be a good name for it. And so we have almost 300 people, I think, in that group. And I would say maybe about 50 of us are very active in it. And you can tell the tight community there. But there are a lot of people that sit back and watch. And for them, I think it's exactly what they need. And they're very welcome to stay. But the main, goal of the group is to really be sober in there. You can't be drunk and commenting. We have, some kind of guidelines to the group, which I think is nice. And we started doing Zooms to meet everybody. We have people in England. We have people all over the United States. It's really cool to like meet all these different parts of the world and their cultures and how drinking has affected them. And I think it's just really amazing what social media can do to bring sober people together that have a bond without even knowing each other, because basically none of us have met. It's strange that, we're all in different areas and we've never met, but we have this bond because we all share the same struggle.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. I found myself talking about Andrew and yourself with my wife at times, and I'm like, I'm just talking about them like they're like part of my family.
Like we had a barbecue last week.
Right. And it's funny. My wife doesn't drink. She's not sober because she has to be. She's just sober because she never liked drinking. She's one of those lucky normies, I guess you could call them. But I invited her to the group just to even allow her to see into the world of sobriety. And I got to tell you, the amount of times that we have conversations in the evenings about things that came up in the group, because she brings them up, because she wants to learn, she wants to understand, the daily things that maybe go through my head that that I don't bring up or, bring out publicly to her. So that's been very interesting. It's been very interesting to see the folks that have stuck it out since January. We've got some people in there with, some longer term sobriety now, and we're going to be hopefully getting into the 6 to 8 months with some of those folks. And, I'll tell you, the first thing that I do now when I have people reaching out to me through social media and even close friends, the first thing I do is point them to that group. I send them an invite and I tell them, come in, join us, sit and listen, join in, have a conversation with anyone, DM anybody you want to. We're here to grow together. So it's been super, super cool to watch and to be a part of. One thing that I will comment on here that you probably don't know this, but the Sobriety Matters podcast came out of the conversations that you and I had early on, as we were figuring out what we wanted to do with finding ourselves sober and structuring it. We were, having those conversations, and we could do this, we could do that. And finally, just one day I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start a podcast. I have the technical knowledge, and it's something that I've wanted to do something, and that's what it is. So we've all marched forward with that. And I have taken this one and kind of moved it over to what it is now, and they all gel together. And so that's why it's so kick-ass to have you on here as the guest the night before, your 1 year anniversary. And so it's an amazing story, and I couldn't be happier. Before we close out though, there is one topic that I want to touch on with you, because I think it's super interesting, and it's your experience with AA. A lot of times people go down the sobriety path and they think it has to be AA. It has to be this, or I'm not going to get sober because I'm not going to AA. I don't believe in God. And we don't have to get into all those different things that people think about AA or why it's good or why it's bad. And this isn't a promotion of AA, but I think your story is very worthy of being told because of your experience and how that's went. So just kind of talk to us about how you were introduced to AA and kind of where all that is today.
Yeah, well, AA is a roller coaster for what it was for me, is. Um, and also, I just want to say about you and your podcast, I'm so happy for you with this, because even just conversations with talking with a sober friend, lead to ideas and kind of make you motivated towards things you want to do. So I'm so happy that you're doing this. But AA, so the first time that night, that Sunday night, that I told Rob that I want to stop drinking, and he easily, because Rob struggles, he has the same mind as me with this. He said, I said, I don't want to do AA. And he said, no, we're not going to do AA. I just viewed AA as taking up kind of your time. It was one of those things I thought of, you can't kind of partially be in it. It's all or nothing. And I was scared and vulnerable. Also, those were the big things. I didn't want to do it. I talked to people through Instagram, through Finding Myself Sober. You were one of my favorite people to talk about it because you didn't push it. You said, this is my experience with it. I take what I take what I need, I leave the rest. You believe in God, and you said you don't have to. And I really appreciated that. I still get a lot of messages from people that are only go by AA. And some people are very hardcore. It's like AA or no way. And I kind of just try and politely say, like, thank you, I'm doing me, and I appreciate your views on it. And if it helps them, then it helps them. I don't want to bring them down, but I don't want them to bring me down as well. And then in Instagram, like we said, got to a point where nobody was around me physically. All of my Instagram sober friends are in different areas of the country. And I felt like I needed people. I needed like physical people in my community that I could talk to or call, go to and get a coffee with. And so I thought, why not? I'll go check it out. I'll check out a meeting. And I went on my 7-month sober date. It was February 13th. When it was a Saturday morning, it was at 7 a.m. And that was another thing, the AA meetings, I was like, none of the times fit in. 7 a.m. I don't get up at 7 a.m. I'm hungover. I was like, slept till 9 with my kids in bed because I was hungover. But then when I was into sobriety enough and I was up at 6 a.m. because I got a good night's sleep, I was like, you know what, I'm going to check it out. And gosh, I will never forget walking in that first day. My heart was racing. I was so terrified. I was scared I was literally going to pass out because I was so nervous. But I just said, you know what, Krystina, I'm going to push myself. And my sobriety account held me accountable, kind of like how I fell back on my family, telling them I was sober. I made a post on my Finding Myself Sober account saying, I'm going into an AA meeting right now. So that tool helped me. I can't back out. I'm not going to be a failure. I'm going to go in. I'm going to say I did it so that I can tell people my experience. And it was kind of nice just listening to people talk, telling their stories. I don't really remember speaking, but because I was so nervous and everything went black. But one of the first things they say when they open up is they say, are there any newcomers that would like to introduce ourselves? And I had a miniature heart attack. I didn't speak up. But then, so through probably the middle of the meeting, I raised my hand and I said, I'm Krystina, I'm 7 months sober, and this is my first AA meeting, and I'm terrified, and I'm here. I think that's kind of what I said. Everybody said, keep coming, welcome. And a lot of women came up to me after and shook my hand and introduced themselves. And that was very welcoming. I really appreciated that. And then so I kept going. I went a couple times a week in the morning when Rob went to work later. And I enjoyed listening to people. I spoke sometimes. I always kind of had what you said in the back of my mind. I believe in a higher power, but I don't necessarily say God or go right to that. Um, so I took what I needed and I gave what I needed to give. And, when we stand up at the end, I didn't say the Lord's Prayer. You don't have to. It's not like they're staring at you saying you didn't say it. You need to say it. It's a choice. I didn't say the Lord's Prayer in church when I was a kid because I just felt awkward speaking out loud. Um, and then at one point, I kind of derailed from AA. I didn't like saying that I was an alcoholic after my name every time. I didn't, I felt like people after I spoke were kind of targeting me and saying, like, if you're new, you should get a sponsor. If you're new, you need to do the steps. Um, and so I started getting in my head about that. And I stopped going for a little bit. And in that month that I stopped going, I noticed that I was getting a lot of lows. I was feeling really bad about sobriety. I was getting negative thoughts, and that alcohol voice was coming back. And then one day at the gym, a guy that goes to AA saw me and he noticed that I wasn't there. And he just said, "Hey, how are you doing?" That's all he said to me. And I almost broke down and cried. And I was like, wow, they noticed me. They noticed that I wasn't there. Maybe I should go back. And then I started going back, and I just said to myself, I did this for 7 months without AA. I'm going to go and I'm going to take what I can take and I'm going to give what I can give. But I did decide to get a sponsor. I have a sponsor and she is awesome. She's reserved but she's very helpful. And I told her, this is my feelings and thoughts on AA, and this is what I want to do. And she said, okay, I'm here for you. So um, I'm definitely taking baby steps with it. I'm not going in with the mindset anymore of all or nothing. I'm just saying it's okay to go when I want. And I really do like the community part of it. I really like that in-person part. It's nice to hear people, and especially, old timers or even new people that come in and kind of relate to all of them. It's another tool I found very useful.
Yeah, and I think that piece that we just went through is so important, of all of your message and everything that you've done so far, because everyone has their own beliefs of AA. It's the negative, it's the bum under the bridge, it's the, you know, quitters go to AA. There's no way I'm going. And there's the people that believe AA is the only way that you'll ever get sober. AA's been around for 80 some years. It's gotten a lot of people sober. Um, but there's a lot of different ways to get sober. And I think the way that you have done it is the way that a lot of people have done it, but it's not talked about a lot. So I just wanted to have you tell that story because I think it's so important. My own experience with AA, I went into rehab and detox. AA was basically started immediately while you were in there. We attended meetings, we had speakers. You were pushed to attend AA right out of your rehab stint. So after my 5 days, I did 90 and 90. But my own personal experience, I never got a sponsor. And the step work that I've actually done on my own. And it is what it is. I'll have, God willing, and with a lot of hard work, I'll have 3 years of sobriety in August, and I've made it stick, using a lot of different tools. AA was a part of it. AA will always be a part of it, and it's always there. I still go to meetings here and there when I feel some of those lows. I think that you experience because you do meet people in there and you see people and you do start to understand that these people do care. I mean, you get some of those old timers and they pay attention. They know when you haven't been there for a while, and their first concern and first question will be, "How you doing?" And so that's awesome. So I think with that we'll kind of wrap up here. Your story is absolutely incredible. Keep doing what you are doing, Krystina. Happy 365. I know that's kind of a karma and bad luck in the sobriety world because you're not quite there, but I've
I'm gonna go
got
to sleep right now.
I've got faith in you, that you'll wake up tomorrow sober. So it's great to have met you, to continue to do the work that we're doing together. Like I said, keep doing you. And even though we've never met each other, truthfully, I love you like a sister. I would do anything for you. You've had more of an influence on me, even though I may be a little ahead of you, if you want to say that, but that's not how I look at these things. You help me greatly every single day, just simply by watching your stories and watching your account. So thank you. And what I do like to do is I want to give you the mic and the floor, just for any words of advice for your newcomers, or anyone in sobriety that may be struggling right now.
Thank you. My words of advice. Gee, that's a hard one. I guess my words of advice would just to really be, if you're thinking about it, then you should maybe take action on it and find what works for you, because there's so many tools out there that will really help you. There's not one way to do this. There's many ways to do this, and to really just start. There's so many ways to start. And if you just maybe listen to what I said would help you, or somebody else, that would be my best advice, is to just go with it. You have to trust your gut and go. And that's what I did in the beginning. I really trusted my gut and what it was telling me, and I just started.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you joining me. And we'll keep doing what we do in the communities. And like I said, happy 365. We'll talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.